That's right. It's the end of season Geary, Stein and Stevens show while the playoffs are heating up. It's been a disappointing season. We were with the Arizona Diamondbacks. Did they make the playoffs? No. Troy and I were in Minnesota. Did the Minnesota Twins make the playoffs? No. We had a chance to hang out with the Miami Marlins. Skip isn't even the manager of the Marlins anymore. So guess what? What does that leave us with? Hey, the Red Sox, we were in Fenway, and they even didn't make the playoffs. But Troy and I, the only appearance we could say that we were able to overcome is the All-Star game. So let me bring in my partner, Troy Geary. And Troy, you look at all those hats. The only one that I can say is in the playoffs is the one that you're wearing of the Kansas City Royals.
Yeah, I mean, it was shocking. I thought the other team would have been the Twins, but the Tigers came out of nowhere, and Twins. Yeah, I don't know. They're going to need some changes this year.
If I'm facing the Tigers, I don't want to face them, especially in a short series. I mean, the momentum that they've had as we watch the Twins sail off into the sunset. So tough season, but again, you still have hopes for your Royals, and I guess we'll talk about the Twins and the changes they're going to need to get for the next season. But I'm very excited to talk to our guest tonight, who is joining us, and we talk about the greatest hitter in history of baseball, Charlie Hustle, Pete Rose, and I had a chance to get to know Dennis Rasmussen, a former Major League pitcher who pitched with the Padres, the Yankees, and the Reds, and he had an opportunity to actually have Pete Rose manage him. So we'll talk about Raz's career a little bit. But Dennis, hey, thanks, buddy, for joining us on such short notice.
No worries. Good to see you guys, and don't forget the Royals.
That's right.
A little bit for the Royals too.
You still got some skin in the game for that. And Dennis, we didn't get to experience Pete Rose as far as what we saw on the outside, and there wasn't media like there is today with everything. So we saw a gruff guy that wanted to win at all costs. And I read a quote back when you were playing for him that you didn't show your emotions like Pete Rose did, and you're never going to be Pete Rose. So what was he like as a manager?
No, I thought he was a good manager. I came over there. I got traded for Bill Gullickson the end of '87. We had, I think, 5 left-handed starters, so they wanted to get a right-hander in the rotation, and I was the guy that got traded over there. And then Bill Gullickson they had him, basically rented him for a month because he ended up going to Japan for the next couple of years. And then, so I pitched the end of the year in '87 and then beginning of '88 until June of '88, and then got traded to the Padres. So, but I was there during the time, apparently, that he admitted finally, and I think it was in '04. I just saw a news clip that he had bet on baseball when he admitted it when his book came out, and I was there for '87 and '88.
So what was he like? Did he talk to you? Did he give you insight, or did he let their pitching coaches pretty much? I mean, was he hands-on, or did he give you any batting advice, back in the days when pitchers could still hit?
Yeah, that's right. Matter of fact, I got my first big league hit in Cincinnati too. So, but no, he was pretty hands-off, and the pitching coach, Scott Breeden, was, obviously real hands-on, and Jimmy Lett was in the bullpen, and so I just worked with them, and actually pitched pretty well the end of '87, and then I got off to a rough start at the beginning of '88. But Pete was Pete. He was always he always had a lot of things, a lot of irons in the fire. It seemed like. I didn't find out till later there was probably a dozen, 12 dozen baseballs spread out throughout the clubhouse that had some charity's name on it, and we were supposed to sign them each and every day. And I've never been a part of, after having played in New York, we'd sign, a couple a day, but never like 12 dozen baseballs a day. So it was crazy, and who knows what they went for. But, I found out later that they probably weren't always going to some charity, and probably were being sold and at some point, because they're eventually going to have Pete's name on it.
Wearing the Royals hat, I got to ask you. You ended your career with the Royals, and I want to ask you about that game in September. One hitter, complete game shutout. What do you remember most about that game, and when did you think you had it going? And what do you think is this Royals team with these veterans and these young guys?
Yeah, I'm impressed. I'm impressed with Kansas City, and I'm following because my even though I live in Michigan and we're obviously rooting for the Tigers and excited about their prospect of them going deep into the playoffs, and after winning today, that's a huge start. So hopefully they can keep it going. But Matt Cattaro was my first time coaching in with the Kansas City or with the Tampa Bay Rays. He was our catcher in rookie ball in the Pioneer League in Butte, Montana. So it's kind of funny that I saw him last year before our season started, and I headed to Billings, Montana for Pioneer League season, ironically, and wished him well and saw him and congratulated him. And he's done a lot of good things there, and I'm happy for him.
Russ, compare manager styles to what you dealt with in your career. I mean, who sticks out as one that was, was Pete a great manager, or did he just did he have that insight, or was New York better? Padres, like you got to play for some great managers.
I did. Well, first manager was Hall of Fame manager Dick Williams in San Diego. So I got a quick taste of that, and then got traded to the Yankees. And my first manager there in '84 was Yogi Berra, and then 16 games into the '85 season, Billy Martin got the managing job. Yogi got fired, so played for Billy, and those two couldn't have been more opposite, to say the least. And Yogi loved all the players. He was just a big father figure, a big teddy bear, and Billy, I don't think I don't, if he could play the game without pitchers, he would. He was not a big fan of pitchers, but you can't play the game without them. So, um, and then of course Lou Piniella came in '86 and '87, the last 2 years I was there, and he was just as fiery as Billy and became more and more fiery. But Pete was, he had a good support group. Guys that were helping him, bench coaches. Tommy Helms was third base coach. Jimmy Lett. They had a good staff. Doggy Perez was there. Lee May was the hitting coach. So he had a lot of experience, and I think he had a lot of insight in that. And we had actually a pretty good team. John Franco was the closer and had a great bullpen. And then you had Dave Parker, Cal Daniels, Eric Davis, Barry Larkin. Pretty impressive team, to come over to.
Amazing to think about it. Go ahead, Troy.
I got one last Pete Rose question. Now that he has passed, unfortunately, do you think he deserves to be in the Hall of Fame? It's considered it was a lifetime ban, and now he's deceased.
Yeah, I'm disappointed. I think if he would have come clean much earlier, he would have already been in the Hall of Fame. We're a pretty forgiving society, but the fact that he, denied it for all those years, and just kind of his ego got in the way, and it's unfortunate. But he definitely deserves to be in the Hall of Fame. I'm not a fan of all the steroid guys and what they did, because that more directly affected the impact of the game for as many guys that were part of that whole thing. So
it impacted you because you're facing them. You had they had that advantage against you that you didn't have against them.
That's correct. So that happened. Started right. Shoot, at the early part of my career, '86, '87, Canseco, McGuire. From '86 to '87, both those guys got twice as big. It was crazy. I didn't really know it at the time, and I really didn't know that it was all going on, because I kind of wasn't in that bubble. So, but obviously it made sense year after year after year as you see the guys, and then Barry Bonds, of course, and then Clemens and Palmeiro and all the other guys that have been a part of that. So one of the things that I will talk about is I got interviewed for the Dowd Report. Didn't get deposition, but got interviewed because they had heard that I had a couple closed door meetings with Pete, because he had taken me out of games early. And my MO as a pitcher was, if I give up early runs, then I would cruise. I might give up 1 or 2 early runs, and then I'd cruise for the next 5, 6, 7 innings. And apparently, if you were a betting man and you got me out of there early, and plus I was a good hitting pitcher, so I was pretty disappointed a couple times that I got taken out and called for a closed door meeting. And of course, he wouldn't meet individually. Pitching coach was in there, and maybe another coach didn't know where it was going to go or how elevated it was going to get. But I was pretty disappointed and pissed that I got taken out of games earlier than I surely thought I should have.
Do you feel like he was betting on those games that you were taken out of?
No question. Yeah, no question. I really believe that. And, over time, it didn't take too long after that. And then, of course, when I got interviewed, it was, and I couldn't prove anything, but it was just my belief and gut feeling that something was going on because it didn't make sense given the situation of the game.
And Dennis, I've heard the same tone of others that when they talk about Pete, there's a respect, but there's a difference between respect and reverence. So I'm wondering, there is that black cloud of all those players that you, as you talked about, that might have impacted other pitchers or other matchups that weren't favoring that day or something like that. And I'm just wondering, when you guys get together at these old timer reunions and stuff like that, did any of those topics ever come up?
Honestly, it never did. There was a lot of guys that knew that I had been interviewed during that time. The guys that played on our club, specifically the pitchers, but really everybody knew what was going on. Your Tom Brownings and Ron Robinsons and Mario Sotos and guys like that, some of us were more affected than others, obviously, but I didn't really know that was going on at the time. But it made sense after the fact. But I don't have any ill feelings toward Pete. I saw him post-career because I lived in Tampa and he lived just outside of Tampa, and I would see him in driving around in his Porsche in North Tampa, and I'd try to catch up to him, and I'd pull up next to him and roll my window down and say hello and, "Hey, Pete, how you doing?" He goes, "Ras, how you doing?" So that was fine. But he he deserves to be on the Hall of Fame, for what he did on the field. I'm disappointed he didn't come clean and just admit it. And unfortunately, but that was his decision. And but he had some good teams and had some good players that were playing on that team, from Dave Parker, who was mentoring Cal Daniels and Eric Davis during that time and made them that much better players. And then, of course, Mario Soto was the star, was the veteran pitcher at the time, and he was toward the end of his career, but he was still, a 12, 15 game winner.
Well, we'll get in the next segment a little more positively, because you've got a great origin story as far as being a superhero, nearly losing your foot as a kid. And as a guy without feet, I can always appreciate that story. But stick with us. Coming up in the next segment, we're going to pick his brain about who he wanted to face, who he didn't want to face. You're watching Geary, Stein, and Stevens. Okay, and we'll come back out of break. All right, welcome back to the Geary, Stein, and Stevens show, and it's a great opportunity to catch up with an old friend. Dennis, I don't think we've seen each other for a few years since a golf course, right? It's been a while.
It's been a few. Yeah, it's been a few years, but it's always good to see you. And I'm always following, and it's, you've been doing some great things, and keep up your good work.
Well, thanks. And I know you right now have been 3 years successful back as a coach. So tell us a little bit about that experience, getting back to teaching.
Yeah, it was great. I was from a few years ago when we were together up in Charlevoix, and I was running the ice cream burger restaurant, Charlevoix Dairy Grill. And then during COVID, ended up getting an opportunity to get back into coaching and decided to do that. So in 21, I got a job in the Appalachian League as a pitching coach, and Joe Oliver was the manager, who was a teammate with the Reds. Matter of fact, as soon as saw that Pete passed, he was one of the first one that texted me. Just said sad day. And then I saw the news. And then, because he played for him quite a while, and then he was with the 1990 World Championship team with the Reds. But so I coached with Joe in the Appy League in Bluefield, West Virginia, and then in the Draft League, MLB Draft League, the following year in Frederick, Maryland, which was in 22. And then Joe got a job with the Mets as a catching coordinator and advanced scout. And so good for him. And I wanted to keep coaching, so I interviewed around and then ended up in Billings, Montana, out west in the Pioneer League, where I started in '96 in Butte, which ironically has one of the former players there is now manager of the Kansas City Royals, Matt Cotaro. And so it's crazy. So I'm, really pulling for him. And we'll see. A lot of things that have to happen for Kansas City to play Detroit, but it still could happen.
Who did you love to face, and who had your number?
Probably Billy Hatcher was a guy that I probably faced the most and got the most hits off me. And I think he probably hit 400. The guy that was probably my toughest out was Andre Dawson. Fortunately for me, I only had to face him in spring training. When I was with the Yankees, West Palm Beach was just up the road, and that's where Montreal was training. And it seemed like the Yankees played the Expos a lot during spring training. So, and I happened to pitch against him quite a bit. And then I had trouble. I think he hit 600 off me in the big leagues, even though I didn't pitch that much against him, numbers-wise, more in spring training, which they don't count. You don't see spring training stats on your baseball reference page, fortunately.
I think they've actually added them. I think
Have
you
they?
can, but I don't think they're retro for
okay.
so that's good.
That's not good. I don't want to see those numbers, but
And,
tough out. A lot of the big power hitters, and then I'm proud of every one of the 175 home runs I gave up. So, I guess if you give up that many, you've pitched quite a few years.
but you had some wins in there along the way. So
I did. Yeah, had pitched well enough to pick up 91 wins at least. So, but I had a fun career, and it was the game was a lot different back then when you hate to say that, but it has. The starters now are really expected to go 5 innings, and then there's a 6, a 7, an 8, and a 9 inning guy, and you're throwing 4 and 5 guys a game, where we were expected to, you take the ball, you were going out there for 9, and you go as long as you can for as hard as you can. So it's quite a bit different now.
What do you think of the pitch clock and the speed of the game now, and do you think it's causing more injuries?
Yeah, that's a good point. I don't know if that's what's causing injuries. I really think there's so much focus on velocity and these guys and throwing as hard as they can, just throwing all out and throwing 95 to 100 plus, and it just arms aren't made to do that. The pitch clock I've become to love, and I think I would have pitched. I would have had more success if I worked quicker, where the hitters had less time to make decisions. And I encourage our pitchers now that I've been coaching to, make them more uncomfortable and make them call timeout and work even quicker than the clock. So it's been, that's been fun watching our guys and kind of transform. If they watch any of my games, I was kind of a perennial slower worker and probably too cerebral, and instead of working quick and just making the hitters more uncomfortable.
Well, as we see your career highlights and watch you pitching in that big, tall frame that should have been a basketball player, but just like all good superheroes, you have an origin story that almost kept you away from the game. And it's amazing to think of where you came from and what happened to you. So tell us a little bit about that day and how it actually made you a better person.
Well, it's Yeah, fortunately, it didn't affect my career too much. I think it did toward the end, but in September 3rd of 1973, I got hit on my bike and I had a compound dislocation of the left ankle, where the emergency room doctor, when I got to the hospital, told my parents that he thought I was going to have to amputate. They ended up putting it back together, and I didn't play basketball that year or baseball. And then the following year, I rehabbed to a point where I got back on the basketball court, and that was my ticket to get a scholarship to play college basketball, which I ended up doing. So I played the next few years and ended up getting a Division I scholarship to Creighton University, and they allowed me to play both sports. And then after 3 years, I was able to, or got drafted by the Angels in the first round and decided to start my professional baseball career. But basketball was my ticket to get a college education and get college paid for. And fortunately, Creighton allowed me to play both sports. But yeah,
It worked out best for you,
it
and
did.
it was
It did.
it's a tough week for sports fans losing Pete Rose and Dikembe Mutombo in the same week because again he was beloved, he was well loved, he gave a lot to the game, and it's just it's a tough week when you lose people that you end up idolizing or playing against.
Yep. Yep. Or playing for. I know it's been interesting to listen to all the accolades and what kind of person Mutombo was. And, I knew him as a player. I didn't know him as a person, but to hear in Barkley and some of the interviews of guys that played with him or against him and that knew him, it's a shame when somebody that young and has done so much for his country and for his people to pass away as early as he did.
And that statement right there, when we're talking about other people who's passed, is the difference between being beloved and just being respected. So that's my comment that you don't have to say. We'll just kind of leave it at that. Dennis, I know you got to go. Troy, final question, thoughts for Ras?
Yeah, I want to ask you one. I got a two-parter real quick. What was your favorite stadium to play in, and what one was not really you didn't really like to go to?
Probably favorite was Yankee Stadium. It's deep to left center. You just had to be careful of leaving the ball out over the plate and or up and away because it was short to right field. But I enjoyed playing in New York and pitching in New York. Um, the Some of the other places, it was tough pitching in the Metrodome in Minnesota. Um, Seattle was tough to pitch in, even though I got my first major league win in '84 in Seattle. But it seemed like both those places they would turn on the fans when the home teams would hit and the ball would just it seemed like it went out a little bit quicker in those stadiums than it would when the Yankees were hitting. But who knows? But I enjoyed pitching in San Diego as well once I got to the National League, and probably what I enjoyed the most was being able to hit because I hit in college and DH'd and hit for myself when I pitched and played first base, and so that was a lot of fun. And pitchers can't say they hit in the big leagues now, but I can always
Most
say
memorable
that I
knock.
hit.
What's your most memorable knock?
Oh, that's memorable knock. Well, I got 50 hits in the big leagues, and my most memorable one. Thanks for bringing that up. Was in Atlanta. We had a couple guys get hurt on a Saturday night and Sunday getaway day. Padres were playing in Atlanta in 1990, and that year I had 18 hits, hit 290, and I was hitting with the extra guys pregame for the last 6 weeks of the season, maybe almost 2 months. And we had a couple guys get hurt, and so we didn't have anybody on the bench, and the pitcher spot came up in the ninth inning of a tie game, and Bobby Cox ended up walking with runner on, walking two guys, walked Tony Gwynn and Joe Carter to get to the pitcher spot, and then everybody knew that I was going to pinch hit because I wore my spikes during the game, and I hit a bases loaded double off Joe Baver to knock in all 3 runs. We went ahead 10-7. In the bottom of that inning, our closer, Craig Lefferts, came in and gave up an infield hit, a swinging bunt, and a 3-run home run to Jeff Blauser to tie it. And the writers told me after the fact they had, I was the hero of the game. They had already written their story because they all flew on the plane we were heading back to San Diego. So then another inning went by, and 2 innings later, gave up a double, game over in the bottom of the 10th or 11th, and we ended up losing the game. So that was my greatest. So I'm 1 for 1 with 3 RBIs as a pinch hitter.
and that makes you appreciate what Ohtani's doing even more. You were a big, giant, clunky Ohtani, right?
Unbelievable. Yeah, definitely. Clunky's a word for sure. But still left-handed hitting. But it's amazing what he can do. I can't even imagine after this year and next year him being able to pitch. And who knows, maybe he'll pitch in the playoffs. I know they've been talking about it. So that would be crazy.
That would be, yeah. And I think Troy has one more for you.
Yeah.
So like you said, you're kind of rooting for the Royals. Is that who you have, if you by heart, to win, or who do you have to win?
Actually, I live in Michigan. We're just south of Detroit, so we're big Tiger fans. Go to many games. And,
like the blanket behind you, is that what that is?
Yeah, exactly.
Oh, that's the Tigers blanket. Okay.
Yeah, exactly. So, we're big Tiger fans, and I moved up here when I married Renee, and so I've been here, coming up on 14, 15 years now. And so I had to get rid of all my Yankee stuff and get Tiger stuff as I'm walking around town and going to games. But so we're rooting for the Tigers, but I'm pulling for obviously for Matt and Kansas City, and especially having played for him, played for the Royals. So,
well, they're both off to a good start. So
yeah. No kidding. Both of us are. So that's a good thing.
That's great. All right, yeah. Dennis. Well, thank you so much for being on the show tonight on short notice. And we got to bring in Will Stein. Oh, sorry, Will. We don't have any time for you right now as we say goodbye to our buddy Dennis. So we'll bring Will in a second. But again, thanks, Raz, so much for your memories and just giving us some insight, and just keep being a cool dude, man.
Sounds good. You too. Keep up the good work. Troy, nice.
All right.
Yep.
More Geary, Stein, and Stevens coming up, and we'll bring Will back in to talk about, I guess, the Vikings. I wore purple, so we'll see you guys later. You're watching Geary, Stein, and Stevens. Okay. Thanks, Dennis. Thanks, bud. We'll talk soon. All right. Will? There's Will. Okay. And Dennis can go by. All right, Dennis, you are free. There we go. Okay, Will, give me a level.
There he is. The man.
What's up, gentlemen?
Give me a level. Okay, 3, 2, 1. So we'll come out of this. We'll talk about how disappointing.
3, 2, 1.
Okay, you're good. Troy, you're still on? Your audio is good?
Yep.
Oh, you were eating ice. Sorry. Okay. I thought you were talking. I couldn't hear
you.
We'll come out, talk about the success. We'll talk about the success of the Vikings, the sadness of the Twins, and your guys' thoughts on this trade, the Carl Anthony trade. Is Minnesota pissed or are they happy?
I think it's a good trade, but
okay,
I think it's mixed.
I think up here most people like it.
Okay, all right.
Fans are mixed.
Yeah. It was kind of out of the blue, but all right, here we go. We'll wing this, and we're going to talk about London. Will, you going to London? No, you're not?
No. Wish. You didn't get a passport. Been telling them for years.
Yeah, and Troy, I don't understand what happened with the postseason thing, but we still have time to fix it. I don't know. I checked all the stuff, and I don't know why 2 got approved. So.
Yeah, they only allow 2 per series, like ALS, NLS, World Series. So you only put it in the World Series, so that's why they gave this to you and Brady. So if the Dodgers and the Tigers make it, they're expecting you to go to frickin' L.A.
Oh. I thought you were supposed to put in for what you might cover. So no. I'll try to clarify.
If you go, if the Philadelphia, your best shot is you want the the Yankees and the Phillies in the World Series. So,
but I was thinking for you, if you wanted to pop down to Texas, or if it, who else you got locally?
Yeah, well, you didn't put anything for anything else, so they only allow 2.
Well, I did. So I'm gonna see what I can do because I put in 5 and I just clicked everything, and it was so confusing.
Yeah,
So
it looks like you only did World Series by the email.
that's all that was left. It just said first rounds, and everything was supposed to be by the 5th. So all right, here we go. We'll start this break. All right. All right, welcome back to the Geary, Stein and Stevens show. And it's rare, it really is rare when we get the three of us all together. But Will Stein stopping by for a little bit. I think he just wants to brag about the Minnesota Vikings. Is that true, Will?
Hey, 4-0, we're secretly becoming the best team in the National Football League. I don't think it's
Well, don't jinx us.
Hey, now.
And they're actually having to talk about you on ESPN and NFL channels, so it's kind of cool. And again, the dark horse has been this quarterback. I mean, can you say enough about what he's done?
So with Sam Darnold, he's always had the proper talent. He's not the third overall pick in the 2018 NFL draft for nothing. The Jets traded up to get him, but he's just been around not the best support system from weapons around him, from the Jets to Carolina. Did well with San Francisco, learning from Kyle Shanahan, who's a great offensive mind. And now Kevin O'Connell gave him the chance to be successful in Minnesota with weapons such as Justin Jefferson, Jordan Addison. We haven't even seen TJ Hawkinson yet. So, and Aaron Jones in the backfield. I just think he's in a great system for him. And it's showing right now. He's always had the talent. Now he has the support system to back it up.
And Troy, you got to watch him in New York. I mean, again, a big road win right out of the gate. What are your impressions of this team?
Yeah, I mean the defense has been from last year to this year has been night and day. I mean they're blitzing at the right time. They're bringing pressure. They're pinning their ears back and just going after the quarterback and being aggressive. And I think the Flores system with the guys they brought in was the right guys. They brought in Van Ginkel and Grenard and all these guys that have just motors, and that's the defense that you're seeing out there. Guys that just relentless, trying to get to the quarterback and pressuring cornerbacks too. So Will's been to every game this year. He's going to miss London. I've been to three.
Who's going to London? Who's going to London?
Oh, well, I guess I'm going. I mean, Will. I told Will to come, but he must have a hot date or something. But I'm going to be going to London, leaving a couple of days here, so I'll represent us out there, and hopefully I bring back a win, Will.
Hey, I hope so. And Stephon, to your point from Brian Flores, Stephon Gilmore excelled on the Flores when he was the defensive coordinator in New England. So that's something to think about too.
Well, a lot of excitement in Minnesota because obviously there's not a postseason for the Twins. Very disappointing. And Troy, look back to when we were together in Minnesota. Things were great. I mean, when did the wheels fall off?
I don't know. It looked like about September 1st. They were 17 games above 500, and they ended, I think, 6 games. So they went like 11-27 the last 38 games or whatever. Just the wheels fell off. Bad decision-making by the pitching coach, manager, no timely hitting. I mean, I went to a lot of those games, and you could just feel the air just getting sucked out of the stadium when they were giving up 9 runs and scoring 1 or 2. So the fans, they stayed even after they're eliminated. The next 2 games was a full stadium. So at least the fans are trying to show their support. They want to will this team to a win. Last year they had a glimpse of that, and they're pretty disappointed right now.
But you got that those Royals, so now at least you have something to shoot for. And again, I know we're talking Minnesota sports, but we're allowed to. It's our show. And the Timberwolves, kind of a shocking move to get rid of an all-star and a superstar and move him to New York. So, Will, what are your thoughts about this trade?
So, I mean, I'm kind of mixed about it. Overall, I don't think it's a bad trade, but what this trade tells me now is that this is Anthony Edwards' team, and this team will go as far as Anthony Edwards will allow them to. So as long as
more than just the first round, that would be good.
We made it to the Western Conference Finals last year, so
But
Yeah,
I'm worried that they might take a step back without, it's like, so Troy, you have some thoughts on that? It's a good
as soon
trade.
as the ownership did not transfer over to A-Rod and his partner, Glenn Taylor just had to save some money. He was about to pay about $50 million in a luxury tax, and owing Towns $220 million over the next 4 years, which is at $55 million is a hard pill to swallow. So I expected them
Twins
to trade
payroll,
him at some
right?
point. What's that?
That's like the Twins payroll.
Ha, yeah. I mean, these salaries is in the NBA are getting outrageous. So I think they, Mr. Taylor wanted some relief from that. They save about 25 million making the trade, and I think it when he wasn't on the court, they actually played better last year. He was hurt quite a bit last season, so I think it opens up the floor more for guys like Gobert and Edwards and pick and rolls and stuff like that. So while some Minnesota fans are upset, we thank Carl for his time here. Great dude as a person, and wish him nothing but the best in New York.
Well, it's going to be interesting to see as that revs up. We're 3 weeks away from Bronny and LeBron probably taking over most of the headlines for a long time, and seeing how that goes. But it's going to be fun, and again, to be able to watch the Vikings. And I haven't quite jumped on that bandwagon yet. I'll save it for when they have a 2 or 3 game lead in that division, because the Lions they looked great again. Looked like they got back to reality and stuff like that. So, Troy, when do you take off for London?
I leave Thursday morning. So I'm going to Denmark for a couple of days, and then London for about 4.
All right, and we're going to try to attempt to do some shows while I'm in Dallas for the Celebrity Softball Classic. Troy will be in London, and given the time difference, we'll do our best to put some stuff together for our fans. And where are you going to be this weekend, Will? You're not with us.
I'm going to be in Houston for the Buffalo Bills and the Houston Texans.
Well, that, of course, makes sense. So,
yeah, he is a man of many hats. He likes like 7 teams. So
I thought,
hey, yeah, you got to pull out all the hats. Give him one of your hats.
Hey, I got some hats for you right here. So, okay. But it's been great, and we are excited to get back into the stream of things. And Dan Loria from the Wonder Years has agreed to be on the show. He and I exchanged emails. He was in LA this weekend acting, but he wants to come on the show. We've got a lot of
we have a surprise Minnesota Viking coming up who's in the Hall of Fame.
It's going to be awesome. So for myself,
and he's not a lion,
and Will, tell the people how they can follow us and see us on social media.
So you can follow the Geary, Stein and Stevens Show on Facebook at the Geary, Stein and Stevens Show, on Instagram at GSS Show, and at Twitter at GSS Show. You can follow us on all your favorite podcasting platforms, from Apple to Spotify, Amazon, all that good stuff. And you can see me acting like a goofball at various tailgates across the National Football League and having some fun with many fans across all 32 fan bases. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah, he'll be coming to a couch near you, so get ready for whenever Will is popping to town to watch some football. But again, it's great to get together, guys. We don't do it enough, and at the end, we can't thank what we do without thanking the fans that support us on your home TV, and you can watch us on Roku and see all of these great things. And again, just being able to have the connections that Troy and Will and I have had, where I can go, hey, Dennis, can you come up and talk about Pete Rose? And it's interesting tonight, I think, a real different perspective again, that Pete Rose wasn't as beloved. He was respected, but I see that. And again, we hear it in the tones of those that played with him, played against him. Can't take away his fire and what type he was as a competitor, but he obviously left the game a little tarnished. And to Dennis's point, if he'd have just been contrite, and we're very forgiving. We've embraced a lot of athletes, Kobe Bryant, Tiger Woods, all these people that have fallen, that can come back and be loved. Mark McGwire admitted it. He's been a coach in baseball. Barry Bonds hasn't, and he's still kind of an outcast. So, guys, it's been great. Troy, have a safe flight. Will, you have a safe flight. Me, I'll have a safe flight, and hopefully we'll get together soon. So, for Troy, Will, everybody wave. This is the end of the Geary, Stein and Stevens Show. Have a great night, everybody.